Welcome to Heartline Stories. Today's story follows Austin, a poor farmer who saves a lost girl in the snow. Little does he know, she's the daughter of a wealthy billionaire. After their encounter, his life is about to change forever. What happens next will shock you. How will Austin handle the surprising twist? Keep watching and let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories like this. It was a cold winter day in the small town of Green Valley. Austin Thompson, a kind-hearted farmer, was working in the fields when he noticed a heavy snowstorm brewing. The snow was falling fast, and the wind made it hard to see. Austin had lived in Green Valley all his life. He had a small farm, just enough to get by, but he loved his land and his quiet life. He wasn't rich, but he was content. He always believed in helping others, no matter what. As Austin was heading back to his farmhouse, he saw something strange in the distance. It was a figure stumbling through the snow. At first he thought it might be a lost animal, but when he got closer, he saw it was a young girl. She was shivering, her clothes soaked, and her face pale from the cold. Without a second thought, Austin rushed over to her. "Are you all right, miss?" he asked, gently helping her up. The girl looked up at him with tired eyes. I got lost in the snow," she whispered, her voice weak. Austin knew that the snowstorm was getting worse, and if he didn't help her soon, they could both be in serious trouble. "Come with me," Austin said, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "I have a warm house. You'll be safe there." The girl nodded and they walked together through the snow, the storm growing stronger with each step. Austin's farmhouse was small, but it was cozy and warm. He led the girl inside, where the fire in the hearth crackled and popped. "Thank you," the girl said quietly as Austin sat her down by the fire. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't found me." Austin smiled. "It's nothing, really. Just happy to help." As Austin made her a cup of hot chocolate to warm her up, the girl introduced herself. "I'm Maria," she said. "Maria Matthews." Austin paused for a moment. He had never heard of anyone named Maria Matthews in Green Valley. "Are you from around here?" he asked, curious. "No, I'm from out of state," Maria replied, her voice still weak. "I was on a trip with my family, but I got separated from them. I don't know how I ended up out here." Austin nodded sympathetically. He could tell she was exhausted and scared, but at least she was safe now. That night, Maria stayed at Austin's farmhouse. They ate a simple dinner of soup and bread, and Austin made sure she had a warm bed to sleep in. He told her to rest and not worry. The storm would pass, and they would figure out what to do next. The next morning, the snowstorm had stopped, and the sun was shining brightly in the sky. Maria felt much better after a good night's sleep. Austin offered to drive her to the nearest town to find her family. As they were getting ready to leave, Maria suddenly looked nervous. I don't know if I should tell you this," Maria began, her voice hesitant. "But I'm not just any girl. My family, well, we're not like most people around here." Austin raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Maria sighed, looking down at her hands. "My father is a billionaire. He owns a large company in the Philippines. We were on a family vacation, and I got separated from them while we were hiking. I never expected to end up in a place like this." Austin's eyes widened in surprise. He had no idea that the girl he had helped was from such a wealthy family. "Billionaire, huh?" Austin said, a little stunned. "I had no idea." Maria smiled softly. "I don't really talk about it. I'm just a normal girl, you know? And you've treated me like a person, not like some rich kid." Austin chuckled. "Well, that's the way I was raised. Rich or poor, we're all people." Maria looked at him with admiration. "I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful to you. You didn't treat me any differently just because of who I am." Austin didn't know what to say. He had never imagined that a simple act of kindness could lead to such a life-changing discovery. As they drove through the snowy landscape, Maria's phone suddenly rang. She answered it, and her face lit up with relief. "Dad, yes, I'm safe. I was with a kind man, Austin Thompson. He helped me when I got lost in the snow. He's been taking care of me." Austin could hear the voice of Maria's father on the other end of the line. Maria spoke for a few more minutes, and then she hung up. "They're coming to pick me up," she said, her eyes a little sad. "They'll be here in a few hours." Austin nodded. "I'm glad you're going to be all right. Maria stood up and hugged Austin tightly. Thank you so much, Austin. You'll never know how much this means to me. Austin smiled. It was the right thing to do. I'm just glad you're okay. Just as Maria was about to leave, Austin noticed something strange. Maria handed him an envelope, a thick, heavy one. What's this? Austin asked, confused. It's for you, Maria said, her voice serious. A little something to show my gratitude. My father wants to make sure you're taken care of. Austin opened the envelope to find a check for a large sum of money. His jaw dropped. No, I can't accept this, Austin said quickly, his hands shaking. Maria looked at him with a kind smile. You saved my life, Austin. My family insists. Please take it. Austin shook his head. I helped you because it was the right thing to do, not for money. Maria nodded, understanding. I know, but my father insists. He wants to make sure you're recognized for your kindness. Austin didn't know what to say. He had never expected anything in return. But as he held the check in his hand, he realized that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. Austin stared at the check in his hand, his heart racing. The amount on the paper was enough to change his life forever. It wasn't a small sum. It was an amount he'd only ever seen in the papers, a number that seemed so far out of reach. But Maria's eyes told him this wasn't just about the money. It was about something more, something deeper. I don't want your family to think I'm doing this for the money, Austin said slowly, his voice firm but kind. Maria nodded, understanding his hesitation. I get it, Austin. But my father, he insists, and he's a man of his word. He believes in showing gratitude. Austin placed the check back in the envelope, his hands trembling. It wasn't about the money for him. It never had been. He had helped Maria because that's what you do for someone in need. But he knew Maria was right. Her family was powerful, and her father had made it clear. All right, Austin said with a sigh, placing the envelope on the table. I'll take it. But I want you to know I didn't do it for anything in return. Maria smiled warmly. I know you didn't, and that's why my family and I are so grateful. Just then, the sound of a car approaching caught their attention. Maria's face lit up. That's them! My family's here! Austin opened the door, and to his surprise, a sleek black limousine pulled up outside. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out from the car. Austin could only assume it was Maria's father, though he hadn't expected such a grand entrance. The man approached them with a warm smile, his handshake firm and strong. Austin Thompson, the man said with respect, I am Samuel Matthews. I can't thank you enough for what you did for my daughter. You saved her life, and for that, we'll always be grateful. Austin shook Samuel's hand, still a little stunned. He had heard of the Matthews family before. They were known worldwide for their successful business ventures, but to meet them in person was another thing entirely. I'm just glad she's safe, Austin said, trying to keep his nerves in check. That's all I care about. Samuel smiled. Of course, but you've done more than that. You've shown true kindness in a world that often forgets what that means. My daughter is a lot like me. She understands the value of people, not wealth, and it's clear you do too. Austin didn't know what to say. It was hard to imagine that his simple life on the farm could intersect with someone so rich and powerful. But here he was, standing in front of a billionaire, having saved his daughter's life. It felt like a dream. I'm grateful, Maria said, giving Austin one last hug before she turned to get in the car. And I'll never forget what you did for me. With a final wave, Maria climbed into the back of the limousine. Samuel followed, nodding to Austin one last time before the car drove off into the distance, disappearing into the snow-covered horizon. Austin stood there, his heart still racing, not sure if he had fully processed everything that had happened. He went back into the farmhouse, closing the door behind him, and sat down at the table. He looked at the envelope with the check once more. Is this really my life now? Austin asked himself aloud. What am I supposed to do with all this? The weight of the situation was starting to sink in. He had never been interested in wealth. He had a simple, happy life on his farm. But this was a different world, a world he had never imagined he would step into. As Austin sat there lost in thought, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Maria. Thank you again, Austin. My father has a gift for you. When you're ready, let us know how we can help. Your life is about to change whether you like it or not. We'll be waiting." Austin sat back, his mind racing. He had never thought that helping someone could turn his life upside down in such a way. What would he do next? Would he go back to his simple life on the farm? Or was there more waiting for him in this new world? And what about the money? Austin's thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. He got up and opened it to find a delivery man standing outside with a large package. "Delivery for Austin Thompson," the man said, handing him a box. Austin took it, confused. He hadn't ordered anything. Inside the box there was a letter, a key, and a card. The letter was from Samuel Matthews. "Austin, this key will give you access to our family estate. It's yours should you choose to accept it. Your help meant more to us than you can imagine, and we'd like to offer you a new home. If you decide you'd like to be part of our family story, you'll have a place here." The card read, "Welcome to a new life, Austin, the Matthews family." Austin stared at the key in his hand. His life was about to take a drastic turn. He had never wanted anything to change, but now he was being given an incredible opportunity. The choice was his. Would he take it? Austin stood frozen in place, holding the key in his hand. The letter seemed to glow in his grip, and for a moment he couldn't believe what was happening. Just a week ago, he was struggling to keep his farm going, barely scraping by, and now he was holding an offer that could change everything. His eyes wandered to the window, where the snow had begun to fall heavier, covering the ground outside. It seemed like the whole world was paused, waiting for him to decide. "Should I even think about this?" Austin whispered to himself, pacing back and forth. He'd never wanted to live a life of luxury. His simple farm life had always made him happy. Sure, there were struggles, but he had his independence, his peace, and he was content with that. But this was different. The Matthews family wasn't just wealthy, they were influential. They had the power to change his life in ways he couldn't even imagine. And Maria had made it clear that she cared for him, even after everything that had happened. Still, the thought of leaving the life he knew behind made Austin uneasy. The farm had been in his family for generations. His father had passed it down to him, and he intended to keep it running just the same. Would he be betraying that legacy if he left? Could he really walk away from everything he had worked so hard for? The sound of a car pulling up outside interrupted his thoughts. Austin went to the window, and through the falling snow, he saw a familiar figure walking up to his front door. It was Maria, standing there with a gentle smile on her face. Austin opened the door, and Maria stepped inside, shaking the snow off her boots. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said softly. "Of course not," Austin replied, stepping aside to let her in. He couldn't help but notice the warmth in her eyes as she looked at him. "Is everything okay?" Maria asked, concern in her voice, as she noticed the letter and key in Austin's hand. Austin nodded slowly. "I got your father's letter." Maria's eyes widened slightly, but she remained calm. "He doesn't do things by half, does he?" Austin chuckled nervously. "No, he definitely doesn't." Maria took a deep breath. "Austin, I know this is a lot to take in, but I want you to know something. You don't have to make any decisions right now. My family doesn't expect anything from you, except to be yourself. We care about you, and if you decide you don't want to be part of this world, that's okay too." Austin felt a wave of relief wash over him. He hadn't realized how much he needed to hear that. "Thank you," he said quietly, "but I don't know what to do. This is all so overwhelming. I've spent my whole life here, on this farm. It's where my heart is. I never asked for any of this, Maria." "I understand," Maria said, her voice soft. "But think about it, Austin. This is a chance for you to have everything you've ever dreamed of. You wouldn't have to worry about your farm or your future. You could do things you never imagined. But if you don't want that, you don't have to take it. I'll support whatever choice you make." Austin looked down at the key in his hand again. I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of life. I've always been a simple man. I don't even know where to begin." Maria smiled and gently placed a hand on his arm. "Then take your time. But just remember, sometimes opportunities come when you least expect them. And sometimes they come with people who truly care." Austin's mind was still swirling with thoughts, but something about Maria's words calmed him. Maybe this wasn't about the money. Maybe it wasn't even about the Matthews family's wealth. Maybe it was about the people who truly saw him for who he was, someone who had done something good, simply out of kindness. "I'll think about it," Austin said, meeting her gaze. "But I need some time to figure out what's best for me." Maria nodded. "Take all the time you need, but just know, we'll be here whenever you're ready. My family, me, we all care about you." With that, Maria turned to leave, but not before giving Austin a quick, reassuring hug. "Don't be afraid to take a chance, Austin. Sometimes the right choice isn't the easy one, but it can still lead to something amazing." As she walked out the door, Austin stood there for a long moment, the snow still falling softly outside. He looked back down at the letter and the key in his hand. What was the right choice? Was it the life he knew, or the one that was being offered to him now? The thought of Maria's words echoed in his mind. "Take a chance, Austin. Don't be afraid." Austin took a deep breath, feeling more uncertain than ever. The future was full of unknowns, but maybe, just maybe, he was ready to step into it. As Austin stood there, the weight of the letter and key still in his hand, he thought back to everything he had worked for, his family's farm, the simple life he loved, and the life Maria had offered him. He stepped outside into the cold, the snow crunching under his boots. The world around him was quiet, almost peaceful, and for a moment he felt a strange sense of clarity. The farm would always be his home, but perhaps there was more to life than just staying in one place. He couldn't ignore the feelings he had for Maria. She had always been there for him, even before he knew the truth about her family. The way she cared for him, the way she believed in him. It made him realize that maybe he didn't have to choose between the life he loved and the future he could have. Maybe he could have both. Austin walked back inside, sat down at the kitchen table, and picked up the letter again. He read it one more time. The words felt different now, less like a heavy burden and more like an opportunity. An opportunity not just for wealth, but for a new kind of life. He stood up, took a deep breath, and made a decision. The next morning, Austin packed his bags and drove to the Matthews estate. He knew it wasn't going to be easy, but he was ready to try. The farm would always be a part of him, but it didn't have to be the only thing that defined him. When he arrived, Maria was waiting for him at the door with a smile on her face. "You're here," she said softly, her eyes full of hope. Austin smiled back, feeling a wave of reassurance. "I'm here, Maria, and I think I'm ready to take that chance." Maria's face lit up. "You won't regret it, Austin. We'll make it work, together." Austin nodded, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He had taken a chance on a new life, on Maria, and on the future. And with that, the story of Austin and Maria began a new chapter. A chapter filled with love, adventure, and the promise of a life they would build together. The farm might always be part of his past, but now Austin was ready to embrace the future, with Maria by his side. Thank you for joining us on this Heartline story. Sometimes acts of kindness can change everything. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more surprising twists.